figured under the circumstances that now was as good a time as any to go through some of the films in my DVD collection and pick out some relevant films in terms of pandemics or post-apocalyptic themes. So I've got about 8 films and TV shows here that I'm going to talk about. So let's just jump right in. The first one is Threads. Now, Threads is a BBC dramatisation basically about a nuclear apocalypse. So it's not quite what's happening right now, but it is a really realistic and harrowing take on what could happen if a nuclear bomb was dropped on a major English city. And it just goes through the story from the sort of warnings at the start to the bombing and how the radiation affects people's lives, and then all the way through to the end where, you know, there's refugees and they're dealing with the repercussions of being irradiated by this nuclear blast. So Threads, I mean, is potentially one of the most horrifying films you'll ever see, but it's absolutely fantastic, so definitely worth checking out. Let's just dump that down there, can't get back in. So the next one is Turbo Kid, and I basically take any opportunity that I can to talk about Turbo Kid. And you can see from the top there that it's been described as Mad Max on a BMX, and I mean that's fairly accurate. It's pretty much a modern day Paul Verhoeven movie. So Verhoeven directed the likes of RoboCop and Starship Troopers. So if you've seen those, you'll know the kind of visceral gore and sort of interesting sci-fi concepts that run through those films. So Turbo Kid is just a really fun story about this kid living in the apocalypse, and he meets this young girl and they strike up a strange friendship, and the backdrop is just this Mad Max style wasteland that's being run by this dictator who controls the water supply. And it's got these mad villains. You can see the guy with the mask on the front and the sort of buzzsaw, you know, everyone goes about in bikes. So it's really quirky, really cool, really fun. It's got an excellent sort of synthwave soundtrack as well, which just plays up on the sort of 80s aesthetic. So yeah, fantastic sci-fi movie. I think it's only about 6 years old, so it's relatively new, so definitely worth checking that one out. The next one is one of the things that Charlie Brooker did before he moved on to being a soothsayer on Black Mirror. This show's been brought up as being fairly prescient at the moment because of what's going on in the German Big Brother house. They're only just finding out about COVID-19, so this is a bit more extreme. It's a zombie outbreak that happens when people are in the Big Brother house, and it's just mental. It's a really good zombie TV show, but it's got that sort of irreverent, satirical humour that Charlie Brooker's been known for a long time, from his early days in writing for PC magazines and whatnot. So if you're a fan of Charlie Brooker, you probably already know about Dead Set, but if you haven't seen it, it's now available on Netflix. So there's not really an excuse if you've got Netflix. Great. So really good TV show, and Davina McCall as a zombie is always good, so worth a shot. What else we got here? Children of Men. So I think the premise of Children of Men is actually after some kind of Spanish flu style pandemic, the human race is no longer able to have children, and sort of 18 years after the last human was born is when the film was set, and the youngest person alive, who's in their early 20s, has just died, so there's a huge sort of worldwide mourning for this young man who's basically become a celebrity. But Children of Men is essentially Clive Owen is an old activist who gets approached by his old partner Julianne Moore to look after a young black woman who turns out to be pregnant, and it's about him trying to keep her safe from all the sort of would-be aggressors and whatnot. So yeah, it's a really good science fiction movie, just a lot of cool action scenes, really well acted. Michael Caine plays a weird stoner in it as well, so yeah, definitely. This is, if you haven't heard of Children of Men, you need to seek it out, because it's one of the best science fiction films of the last decade, so that comes highly recommended. So now what else have we got? A couple of TV shows now. It's a bit of a stretch. We've got The Wire now, and in fact The Corner. So these are both. I mean, everyone's heard of The Wire. It's lauded as one of the best TV shows ever made. And the reason I bring it up here is because it's about an epidemic. The drugs epidemic across the United States, and okay, the name of the show alludes to the police setting up a wiretap to catch drugs criminals, but the later seasons kind of span all aspects of life and how it's affected by drugs, and it's just a fantastic show. And I've only got 3 seasons here. There are 5, I think, but stupidly I lent one of the seasons to someone, which you should never do with a box set, because if you don't get it back, then you just have a stupid empty hole in your box set. But I've replaced it with The Corner, which is another. It's a sort of mini series that David Simon did, and it follows people affected by the drugs on street level, and it's if you like The Wire, then The Corner's a sort of essential watch, I think, as a follow-up to that. So The Wire doesn't really need much of an introduction. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, but if you haven't seen it, and you're into the likes of The Sopranos or Breaking Bad or that kind of thing, then The Wire is worth seeking out. Okay, so what else have I got? A fairly obvious one, Shaun of the Dead. So there's been a lot of talk of Shaun of the Dead because of the whole scene where it's like, let's go down the Winchester and wait till it all blows over. Well, I've got news for you. The Winchester's closed, so there'll be none of that happening. You might have seen the short that Nick Frost and Simon Pegg did recently, which is just a sort of parody of their characters in Shaun of the Dead. It was quite fun, but obviously this is included because it deals with a viral outbreak that turns people into zombies. And I think the great thing about this is just how sort of British it is in how you might expect the British public to react to a zombie outbreak, obviously with a bit of over-the-top humour and added, and plenty of gore. And if you're a fan of any other stuff that Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and Edgar Wright have been involved in, then you'll absolutely love Shaun of the Dead. And I can't recommend this enough, and to go back and watch shows like Spaced, and to give Hot Fuzz a shot as well. Not so keen on The World's End. It felt like it should have been this big ending to the so-called Cornetto trilogy, but it just ended up being a bit of a disappointment, and it really pales in comparison to Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. But I think this is an essential watch during the times we're living in. So, Shaun of the Dead. We got one more, and it's a little bit of a stretch. So I've picked another. This is another Charlie Brooker show, and the reason I've picked this is because it's sort of about an epidemic of idiots, and the whole premise of the show is about the rise of the idiots. And watching this now, watching it back now, it really sort of predicts the rise of online personalities and YouTube personalities and stuff, which is essentially what Nathan Barley is. He's an online prankster, and it's just the main character's played, well, one of the main characters is played by Julian Barrett, who is just kind of dismayed by what's going on around him and all these kind of fools and how they're popular and successful, and it just kind of boggles his mind. But this is absolutely one of the best things Charlie Brooker has ever been involved in, and I think Chris Morris was also involved in this as well. So those, I mean, Chris Morris is a sort of god of satire, and then you mix that in with Charlie Brooker, who is up and coming then, but now is probably as highly regarded, if not more so, than Chris Morris. You've got a sort of perfect combination there. So it's an absolutely hilarious show. It's ridiculous. It's endlessly quotable, and yeah, it's a great TV show. I wonder if you can actually go to that website. But if you haven't seen Nathan Barley, then it's an absolute cult classic. So worth checking out. So that's your lot. I was looking for the like of Mad Max, The Road Warrior and whatnot, and I'm sure I had that, but it just seems to have disappeared. I've got a much reduced DVD collection these days, but those are just a few of the sort of post-apocalyptic, pandemic, epidemic kind of things that I could find. So I hope you enjoyed that, and there's a few things there you might have not seen and want to check out, but maybe do some more of these videos in the future and pick out some other talking points from in here, and probably do the same with my record collection and cassettes and CDs and whatnot. So hopefully do those fairly soon. So cool, see you later.